Probably I'd like to do without connection. Although there's still going to be some work for Phil to do. Well, connected power blocks.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a town council meeting dated March 20th, 2019. And if we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll do a roll call. Let me just start off by saying Mike McLaughlin and Paul both had other commitments to take care of tonight. I think I'm not sure what Mike's up to, but I know Paul's involved with some scouts or something.
Okay, Debbie Kopp here.
Marty Wilson be here. And I'm sure you have the right agenda in front of you. Mayor's Town updates. First on the list, I've got quite a few things to go through, so I'll try and blast through this with minimal interruptions, hopefully. Speed limit change with UDOT. I made a phone call to them, pushing them to hurry up and get that done. They asked me to send them a letter on behalf of the town, asking for the change, so they have something in writing that goes with their package up to their main office. The local office seems like it's kind of a done deal with them, but they do have to get permission from their higher ups, and they feel like that'll happen, but it's still in process. I'm also pushing for them to do a double yellow line through that area. It's by Bubbling Wells area. There is that passing lane right there that is dotted, and people are trying to turn left, and someone behind you can think that, oh, some slowpoke and want to pass you. Anyway, we're trying to fix that, and the other are turn arrows on the highway over here by the cabin project. People think that also is some reason a passing lane where it's actually a left turn lane into where the cabins are. And so we're working on getting arrows put there as well. They've agreed that that needs to happen. The one thing I've learned as far as municipality goes, you just have to keep bugging them. It's not like they forget, but I walk in there and I see their desk piled this high with things that are going on. I just need to make sure our stuff is on that top end. So I just make regular phone calls anymore to try to help make that happen. I've talked to Ron Whitehead at the county about Main Street realignment. It's one of those things that we've been also trying to work on is get the alignment so it's a 90-degree angle. Basically, it's a lazy S turn at the Main Street and get rid of that real steep angle and try and make it more 90-degree angle to that instead of the real sharp angle. It's just a matter of making a lazy S through that, so when you're traveling on that road, it becomes a little bit safer to cross Main Street. So it's another thing I've been working on. I bugged him again this week, trying to get him out for an on-site inspection. UDOT did come out with their drone and fly that to get the topography, so they can provide it to the engineers that are actually going to do the design work on that. That's been done. Apple Valley Way, we had some washouts with those rains we had a couple weeks back, maybe 3 weeks back, and it's been always an ongoing problem. My wife's been here 25, 30 years, and she says it's always been that way, it's always been a problem, and every time it rains, it washes out. We go down there and we fix it. And so we're dropping some culvert pipes into those washes. Those have been dangerous recently because of washouts were so significant that we did have 3 different cars that I'm aware of that had significant damage to them because of the drop-off, not realizing they're just normally going through there like everything's great, but at nighttime you can't see that. Actually, it drops off and there's hazards down in there, and end up costing some people hundreds of dollars per vehicle for repairs. And so we went down there with some culverts, at least threw in some culverts that we had. And so we're hoping that we can at least mitigate this. This is a Band-Aid. We're not thinking this is perfect. We're hoping that 90% of the time that we're good. And then that other 10%, that belly washer that we get that will sometimes come through here, we'll probably have it fill up and go over the road again, and then we'll go back and fix it, but at least most of it's going under the road instead of on top of it. And at the time that we can finally get some FEMA money in here, then we'll go in there and we'll do it the right way and put in probably larger culverts, maybe double them, whatever it is that engineering recommends on that to actually handle the all the time flow of that 100-year flood that goes through that wash. So we have a permanent fix. So just know that we're doing what we have, we're trying to spend as little money as possible to fix that roadway. The other wash over there by Campbell, that's closer to where you guys live, that are on that side of the road, that's in process. We're going to be having that pipe delivered shortly, and that wash will be taken care of as well. I think we're putting a 3-foot culvert on that particular wash, and we're hoping the same thing. We get 90% of the time it takes care of the problem where you have a safe road to travel. The rest of the time it's going to go over the road, it'll wash out, and we're going to go back and fix it at that time at least. So, but it'll take care of you most of the time over there. Anyway, as soon as we can try and get some FEMA money in, we'll try to fix that on a permit level. Ombudsman training. I've asked the Ombudsman's office to come into the town to do some training for town council and for the planning commission. I don't have Cynthia here tonight, but I'll work with her to try to come up with a time when everybody's available so we can have training. This will be open to the public as well. But basically, what happens, and the reason I'm asking for this, is we got a lot of people just don't want anything to happen anywhere in Apple Valley. And that mitigates state law, which says that if you have or own property, that you actually have the right to do something with your property. We just can't tell people, you absolutely can't do anything, you can't do what you want to do. There's times we can say no, based on master plans and things like that, but basically, if the project fits the property, we're not in a position where we can even say no without putting ourselves in a lawsuit situation. And so the Ombudsman, these are the people that are going to first get this. If someone wants to take us to court, which has happened twice since I've been mayor, they go to the Ombudsman, we get a call from them, what's going on, give us the details, because they're going to give us a kind of a, how would you say it, a stern warning that maybe we should reconsider.
They also can issue an opinion.
And even
if
issue
they do,
an
the court then will, it's construed against you if you take it to court. In other words, the
Right.
burden is on the town then if we had something that was an opinion from the ombudsman. That was
Right,
negative.
and so someone has just and this is the scary part of this Ombudsman's office is these are people that work for the state of Utah, and it doesn't cost you anything to go there. You can just take your complaint there, you write it up, and you take your complaint there, and the Ombudsman's office can issue this opinion, and it can be an opinion against the town. If we want to try and hold to our guns, that means that we've got to get our checkbook out, because chances are we're going to lose the fight. And so it's important that we try to always adhere to the state law. When some of the people come in and they say they want to put a gas station in on the corner of such and such, and it's zoned, our general map says it's commercial, and we say, no, you can't do that there because we don't want one there, we're going to end up in the Ombudsman's office and in court, and we're going to lose. And so anyway, the Ombudsman's office is going to come in to do some training, and the public, like I say, is welcome to this. I don't have a date set, but we will be setting that hopefully in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and we will, it'll be a public notice meeting type of thing, because the public's welcome as anytime we have a quorum of people here. I just got to get together with everybody, find out what date would work, and we'll probably have not a regular meeting time, but like on a Thursday or something, maybe even a Saturday, we'll see. But I want them to come in, do some land use training so we can find out how do we stay out of trouble, and how do we still come up with the guidelines that we want to see, the vision we have for our community, and how do we still not catch ourselves where we're in trouble as far as the law goes. Long-term Apple Valley growth and planning. I sent out not a send out, but I put a questionnaire on the town website that said Main Street survey. It had a lot of people, and I thank everybody for responding to that. And the Main Street survey is just a way for people to voice how they envision Main Street to be, as far as, you know, when you look out there, you know, from the center of Main Street, what do you want it to look like someday? This doesn't mean we're trying to develop Main Street. It means we're trying to look in the future to decide, does our general map match what we want to have for our vision for Main Street? And, you know, a lot of people just, we're gonna have a special meeting just on this subject, but I'll just touch on a couple things real quick. Is that there's a significant amount of people that say only the first mile of Main Street should be commercial property, the rest of it should be probably residential. And a lot of people, there's a few of them that say absolutely nothing out there. And the problem with that is back to the ombudsman training that we'll go through, that says that if the guy says that he wants to put houses out there, and our master plan says that they can put houses out there, we can't say no to that. There's just, you're just asking for trouble. And so anyway, my goal isn't to develop all of Main Street and all of that property out there as much as guide it. And today, there's nothing out there. So today we have the opportunity to make general map changes, things like that, that help match the vision that we see for the community, that help us guide the community where we want it to be. And, you know, one of the options is probably not to say it's forever going to be open space. You know, it's probably not one of the options, but what we can do is say only commercial for the first mile. That's a possibility. We can say that we can have low density housing, and then we can also define what low density housing is. We can say low density means 5 acres or more, 2.5 acres or more, and that's why I've asked those questions. These are things we'll be sharing with the Planning Commission, and so when we're having discussions on this stuff, we can try to guide that dialogue where we want it to be. And we've had a lot of great feedback on it, and I'm not saying all of it is what I would call good feedback. It's as far as you know, there's been a couple people who said absolutely nothing, but for the most part, people are pretty reasonable on it. And when it comes to the vision of the Western theme, overwhelmingly people like it, but there have been some really good ideas put up that I didn't think of. And if those ideas were on that survey, would they have been more impactful over the Western theme? And so those are things we'll talk about at this meeting that's coming up. And anyway, we'll get into that into a separate meeting now. I just wanted to give you a heads up to what I've been up to, trying to put feelers out to the community. I haven't finished my phone calls. Anybody that put a phone number on there, I'm trying to call every single person so I can just touch base with them individually and talk to them about it. Along that line, long-term growth vision. The one thing that I pick up when I go to these meetings, I was in a transportation meeting, and it's a Dixie Transportation Executive Committee today, and having a meeting, and they're talking about long-term growth, and we're talking about what they see in a vision and how they change from time to time their visions. And I was introduced to an idea today. It's called Vision Dixie, which is something they put out many years ago, and it was just a collective, a collection of ideas that they had that would help protect all of our communities down here, as regarding, you know, the views and you know, our hillside and just the densities and different things like that. And it was really cool to listen to some of this. I think that sometimes, I know for me, I didn't think past, you know, next week and before I was mayor. Now I'm getting in these meetings where I see that I've got to think out 5, 10, and 15 years from now, long beyond me being mayor, possibly even. But I've got to think that far out in order to help direct the community in the direction you guys want it to go. And that's why it's important that we start these discussions. It's not to deter from what you guys want, it's to direct what you want, if that's a good way to put it. Because today, if we talk about it, today we can make some changes before we have to put up with whatever happened to show up out there. So anyway, we're just going to be looking at some of that planning over the next few months, and the reason isn't to make Main Street this metropolis, it's to decide what we want it to look like so we can create that. And so that's some of the ideas I have on that, and trying to look and, you know, be visionary as opposed to reactive, if we can say it that way. The legislature came close to tiptoeing into zoning mandates on this last session. Those that were in the meeting talked about how this is likely to come to reality. And this is something that directly affects Apple Valley and the way we see our community. And they're talking about requiring communities to have moderate income housing, and this could be defined as lots as small as 5,000 square foot lots. And so they're mandating that we have that. And if you don't do that, we're going to take away your BC road money. That's $70,000 this year is what we get in BC road money that you could be subject to losing if you're not thinking smaller lots to where people can it makes it more affordable for some people. And so if we're going to go down to even quarter acre lots, which is probably, anybody know the math on that?
10,000.
10,000. So twice that size to equal a quarter acre lot, to even get down that far, everybody's against that. Yet we've got to have something somewhere where we decide that if we put it here, that would be okay. Because, you know, it's going to come very soon, sooner than we think, that we are mandated by the state even to possibly do that. That didn't get past this session, but feeling the room is it's going to happen because the state is serious about making sure communities are listening to the people's needs for more affordable housing and the need for it, to the point that they'll mandate that we meet certain guidelines in order to even receive BC road funds. So anyway, there's a couple of quick notes from meetings that I had today, and I'm gonna not take a bunch of questions right this second because we got so much to go on. We'll have some public comments shortly, if that's okay with everybody. I mean, so everybody actually has to ask a question. I hate to just open up with a half-hour dialogue here, but yes.
I'd like to make a comment about.
Could you give us your name and address, please, for the record?
I'm sorry?
Your name and address for the record, please.
Leah Outwood, 1535 McIntosh Circle.
Thanks.
I feel sorry for these people that can afford a bigger place, but where's the sewer going to be? I mean, are they all going to have septic tanks, all these little places?
No, we
There's
wouldn't.
going to be a sewer?
We would not allow that.
And
Even the
wait.
developments that we're considering right now, we're requiring a sewer type of systems in those, because we really want to push that direction towards sewer over septic right now, so.
Yeah, and water. Yeah. Where's the water coming from?
Yeah, we've got the water, that's not a problem,
Okay.
Ask him.
so. Did you have something too?
No, I was just gonna say, we'll ask more questions
Okay,
at the
okay.
comment period.
All right, so anyway, I'll move off from the Mayorstown update. I hope I cut most of the high points. Set up a public meeting on the Main Street. You know, there's item number 1 on our agenda. Set up a public meeting for the March 28th. We'll put out a public notice for that meeting. It'll be 6 p.m. That's on a Thursday. And this is really to open up the discussion on, give you not only the results of what the survey was, you can see what your neighbors all voted on. We'll graph this out. We'll put it on the meeting website so you can even download this ahead of the meeting. And we will kind of show you where everybody's leaning. And then, you know, the big bullet point that I already kind of spilled out is that, you know what, it might have been an incomplete survey because I didn't offer a couple of other options as far as the type of motif or whatever that we might do Main Street in that helps attract people, because there were some good ideas that were brought forth. And so the feedback was fabulous to get, even though I wasn't in agreement with the survey. It was wonderful that people didn't agree, and the results are going to be good for the town. So anyway, so that'll be on something that we'll open up to the public to discuss, and if you'd like to provide feedback, that would be a meeting you'd want to attend to help steer us the direction you see it. Item number 2 is Gooseberry Mesa Landscape Hotel presentation. So I'll turn it over to Rich right now. They're going to tell us what their vision is for that.
And can we just say that save all your comments and questions till the end of their presentation, that way they can get through smoothly.
We should dim the lights if you want to see this. Rich D. Spang. Some of you know me, some of you don't. This is Rob Conti, my partner. We got Andrew from Capital Legal. So what we've got here is we're going to run through some slides to show you our purpose, why are Rob and I here. Talk about branding real quick, and then how that relates to our project.
Can you raise that up?
Can you raise it?
Yeah, let's,
Not a trash can.
yeah. And then walk through how that's affected the refinement and development of our project. So if we go sideways. Big numbers.
Yeah, let me go grab it.
I bet this will work.
We've got a lot of
That'll
big
work.
books.
That'll work.
It's bigger. Hey, Rich, can you slide it back?
Yeah,
You lose a lot of it.
yeah, we'll figure this out.
Maybe the book.
Just like this here. There, we got it all twisted up. Right. That's something.
Give him a highlight, yeah.
Okay. So, most of these images are from National Geographic's Instagram account, and they're highlighting the plastic crisis. That's what they're calling this, that we're having on this planet right now. We're gonna run through some of this.
Pretty close.
Then we're gonna run through our project. It's probably gonna bug everybody, huh? Do we have just, yeah, books might be better if there's a big stack of books.
Sorry, I thought you were making it hard some.
We've got-
Everybody can see it better too.
We're government, we've got plenty of big books.
What?
This is the trash can I had in mind.
Right. I was
Does
thinking the same thing too,
Does
right?
that work for everybody?
You guys went right to recycle.
Yeah, it's on the recycle bin.
Of course, right.
Yeah, let's just do that. Let's get rid of this thing.
Good catch.
Get this out. So, yeah. That's right, okay.
Yes. First challenge.
Okay, so this is highlighting what they're calling the plastic crisis, and planet or plastic. And I don't know if you guys know what hashtags are, but hashtag planet or plastic. And this is a big problem we're having. Fort Lauderdale Beach. I didn't know until last year.
Yeah,
I didn't
so-
even know about it.
You say that because of
Okay, so we're just gonna burn through these. So in third world countries, they're able to recycle really effectively because they have a lot of hand labor, and they separate. This image is talking about people are getting crushed in these third world countries, salvaging the landfills, pulling plastic out. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. This is showing somebody. It's hard to see the image, but it's showing somebody separating red, blue, and green bottle caps because they have different value, and how it's an almost perfect system, and then they just throw all the extra stuff in the wetlands around it. So then it's a terrible system. This young man is walking on top of a sewage canal that ultimately dumps into the ocean, and there's so much plastic on it that he's walking on it, and he's like finding stuff to recycle to make some money. This is a canal just full of plastic and trash. This is what a lot of the beaches are looking like all around the planet, just trash, plastic everywhere. If this video was live, it just shows a dump truck backing and just dumping all their trash into the river. And it's saying that there's 10 rivers that put most of all the plastic into the ocean. And they're third world countries, and there's hundreds of millions of people that live along the rivers, and it's just their way of getting rid of their waste. And a lot of these rivers are biologically dead rivers now. So now we're going to go through some shots of the ocean. That would be really great to be surfing through trash. Look at that. I mean, look at that. This is what's going on. So plastic straws. This is something that was newer to me this last year. I learned about how bad straws are. And we'll get to more of that in a second. This one, okay, so right here it says we've got 8.3 billion metric tons of plastic we've created. We put 6.3 billion tons in the landscape and landfills, and only 9% of that gets recycled. And even when we do recycle plastic, there's these huge plants that they have to go to, and it takes a lot of energy, and we're not really effectively recycling any of our plastic. And the problem with plastic is this cheap, thin film plastic. So when you have biodegradable, like just organic material, it obviously breaks down in the landfills, but when plastic's put in the landfills, it doesn't break down. When it ends up in the ocean, like this stuff, the ultraviolet or the sunlight and a water bath, it'll break it down into smaller and smaller pieces, but it doesn't ever biodegrade. Just like your gut bacteria, we don't eat plastic, the planet can't ever break it down, so it gets smaller and smaller, but it never goes away, ever. And it's getting into the fish and it's getting into our bodies.
And our salt.
Yeah, it's a big problem. So this is a plant, it's a ethylene cracking plant in Texas. And if we could see it better, it's like a massive chemistry lab. And there's all these different processes where they have huge turbines creating lots of pressure, and they're throwing catalysts like gold and all these different things. This whole entire plant makes thin film plastic. So and they break all the carbon chains down into little pieces, and then they recreate and push them all back together, but you can't ever reverse it. So this massive plant creates thin plastic, and it never goes away. It goes away like we can't see it, but it never, ever, ever biodegrades. And the stuff in the landfills doesn't break down. So what we're talking about here are petrochemicals. And petrochemicals are the magic ingredient for all of modern day life. Every single product that we use, unless you know that it's like cotton, 100% or something like that, has a form of a petrochemical that has created it. It's the magic ingredient. And I didn't know this until I was going to school, and I took a class called Modern Materials and Manufacturing Processes, and this was years ago. And when someone would talk to me about oil or petro, I thought they were talking about what you use to drive your car. I didn't realize that it was like everything we have. So this is a photo that shows a NICU and a little, sick infant, and it's saying that everything is plastic in this unit, including the walls and the nurses' aprons. So as far as like a rational, reasonable approach to this, we're not saying we can't use plastic. That's not rational. We're saying let's stop wasting it and let's use it on important things, because we can't offer this type of a service to this baby without plastic. It's important, but we're abusing it. Styrofoam, same thing. In my opinion, I like to go rafting, so like a Yeti cooler, that's a good use of the styrofoam. I can buy a Yeti cooler, take care of it, switch out the hinges if they break, and I can have that my whole life. That's a rational approach. But like styrofoam cups, take out, all the disposable convenience, petro-created stuff, that's where we have our problem. So the way that we're reacting to it is they're banning styrofoam. And look at this, and back to prioritizing how we use it, this is a wine bottle, and instead of being encased in styrofoam for shipping, they've grown that out of mushrooms. So Rob and I are saying, if it's going to be a disposable product, make sure it's biodegradable. If it's something that's never going away, let's make sure it's something useful. One thing that bugs me is like the fast food plastic toys. So we have this petro, it's limited, And when you create something out of it, it never goes away. And we're creating these little silly toys that are in the landfill, and they're gonna be there forever. They're not gonna go away. So this is more mushroom. That's grown out of mushrooms right there for this electronic gadget. Back to the straws. So Washington, D.C. has banned plastic straws, and they are one of the worst offenders that we have right now. You use your straw for like 20 minutes, and the average person uses 1.6 straws a day, and they never go away either. So now we get to the creative solution part, and this is where the branding piece comes in for us. So we have an opportunity to offer other products, and then when people say, can I have a straw? And you give them a stainless steel straw, or a bamboo straw, or a glass straw, or a copper straw, and they say, what's this? That's the opportunity through our branding to effectively have this conversation and try to help facilitate change. I'm sure everybody's seen those little square things that you can scan with your phone or whatever, and maybe it'll say in one of these situations like, learn more, scan this. But the whole intent is to create a situation where we can talk about creative solutions to these big problems. Tacoma's banned plastic bags. You have to bring your own, we've all seen these, reusable bag, or if you don't and you buy paper, they're charging a premium. I don't know if it's like a couple bucks or what, but they're making it like really expensive to try to facilitate and force change. So for us, we can offer, like products, like maybe we have our logo on it or whatever. We'll, interface with our branding and marketing people, and they'll help us create situations where we can talk about all these different things, but in an effective manner, not in like a snarky or like fear-mongering or anything like that, but just like, hey, look at this type of a deal. So only powered by knowledge can we take the necessary action to transform our relationships with plastic and protect our families, communities, and the environment. That was an additional National Geographic. But this, for me, is where it gets really, really interesting. This slide right here, I'm just going to read this. The planet must produce more food in the next 4 decades than all farmers in all history have harvested over the past 8,000 years. Okay? And just think about that for a second. And it's like, why and how, and what is that all about, right? So I'm going to skip to, this is a world meter. This is our world population right now. That's 7 billion people, almost 8 billion people. And you see how the number on the right is going up and down, up and down? That's people being born, and that's people dying. But the number's always going up. So far this year, first this year, 30 million people in the last 3 months. We've had, where's my mouse at? So, just this year, 12 million. Population growth this year, 17 million. So since January 1st, in these 3 months, we've gained 17 million more people on this planet. We're gonna come back to this. So look, we're at 7,691,693,000. And just remember that, because when we come back to this later, it's gonna be a lot higher. And it's really, really crazy. So, now we're going to petro. So, we've peaked on oil many times, and then we get more intrusive. So in 05, they were saying, oh, we've hit peak oil, and we start fracking. We start fracturing the ground and all this type of behavior. And is it Flint, Michigan, where you can light your tap water on fire? Has anybody seen that?
In Wyoming as well.
Right? And where do we have a lot of oil? Under our national parks. So we know that it's a finite supply. There's only so many dead dinosaurs. The reason that this is interesting to me is, do we have any farmers in the room? So, farming, so mega farming, back in the day, hemp farming, right? Nowadays, correct, and it's all petro. So, from the tractors and the heavy equipment with the diesel engine motors and the hydraulic pumps,
Fertilizers.
you know it. So, from the equipment, and then we strip the topsoil, and there's no nutrients left, so then we put petro, fertilizer, and then the bugs are going to come eat it, So we use pesticides, Petro. And then we've got this product called food that's kind of not that healthy because of all the Petro. And then you have to get it from the farm to the grocery store, Petro. And then if somebody wants to buy the food, they have to leave their house, drive to the grocery store, Petro. So our entire food system relies on Petro, or fossil fuels, or oil, whatever you want to call it. And we have a limited supply. But so Petro's going like this, and our population's going like this, right?
Hey, Rich, I think you're getting in the weeds here.
Okay, so I'll bring it back.
Presentation, please.
Okay,
Let's get on with it here.
so aquaponics, and the way this ties into our project is we want to have an aquaponics system in our lodge. I don't know if anybody knows what aquaponics is. You're basically growing food from fish poop. And it's a closed loop cycle, and this is an opportunity for us to say, hey, we have big problems on this planet. We're gonna have big problems feeding this planet. The only foreseeable logical way to feed everyone on this planet is through aquaponics. And they usually use tilapia, and it's a super simple, basic system. So what that means to us is we'll have cool gardens, aquaponics, same thing. People come in to learn more, scan the code, whatever. It's just an opportunity for us to talk about creative solutions that we see for big, massive problems. Aquaponics, 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 aquaponics. Here's where our fossil fuels, and I'm going to show you one quick clip, and then we'll get right into our project, because this is my favorite thing ever. This is Three Amigos, and this is Steve Martin. Okay, so the canteen is our planet. The water in the canteen, that's our fossil fuels. And Steve Martin is the near future. Martin Short is the distant future. And then Chevy Chase, of course, is society in its present situation with our relationship with our fossil fuels and Petro.
And more.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Courses, etc.
And this will be over in a second, but it's just too good.
Yeah.
Right?
Ooh.
And then he's gonna, he ends it so well.
Good way to make a point.
He's so stoked, but he's so clueless. That's where we're at. Okay. These ecosystems we're trashing are super complex. This is a NASA image showing sand from the Sahara Desert being blown across the globe, fertilizing the rainforest.
Let's jump into the project.
Yeah, that's it. I'll quit. Okay. Okay, we'll skip through all this. So, here's our project. This is what we brought to you guys. This was our vision. And once we got into this and started going through it and trying to figure out for fire, water, we started to realize and learn a lot. So our plan development zone, we know that life and safety and fire, there's no gray area, but through innovative and creative design, we have an opportunity to come up with new creative solutions. So we'll skip through this, but this is just hotel, motel, bed and breakfast. This is what we were seeking. Just going through. In that, a lot to talk about creative solutions in your the ordinance, and then this is just talking about creativity. We'll go through this quick. This was our interactions with the water people on commercial septic. These type of systems are super cool. You could put this in your driveway, and you could put those tubes for your septic on your driveway, put sand on it, and plant grass, and it would work. And it's really cool. So our commercial septic system will just be a big, massive system like this. We had a lot of questions about the bedrock and all that kind of stuff, and it's totally possible, not a problem. So when we got into this and started looking at, okay, so we're going to trench here, we're going to trench there, we're going to try to not disturb the open space. But, okay, so this would be our sewer lines, and then this would be our water lines, and then this would be our power. And you can imagine that we would have ended up tearing up the entire property. And our original vision was to have these little cabins sprinkled out and keep it all pristine, and you take a 3-volt bike out to it. But then we learned that with the requirements for fire and everything, that wasn't possible. This was a residential development, 50 lot. When Rob and I were seeking funding, we got an extension. We almost lost it. There was a backup cash buyer, real estate developer that wanted to do a 60 lot development. Jack Raleigh, that was selling the property, could have kept our earnest money. So from just a capital standpoint, that would have made more sense. But he kept our money, sold it to them. But he didn't want the property scraped either. So he gave us another chance, gave us a second extension. And it almost got scrapped, is my point there. So here's our project. This is what we brought to the table. We were originally coming to it with shipping containers. A lot of people were turned off by the idea of shipping containers, but our shipping containers were going to be, I think they were going to look really nice and attractive. But when we got into it and we got our architects involved from Park City Design Build, we realized, and we went to Irontown Homes in different places, and logistically we couldn't get those out onto the property, and it wouldn't be cost effective anyway. And then when we met with our architects, we also, that's the time when we figured out what we were dealing with was a landscape hotel. So we hadn't even heard this term before, and it just says it's a, has a type of accommodation design to blend in with the surrounding environment and highlight the natural beauty that surrounds it. And we're like, okay, that's what we're doing. And we didn't even know that's what we were doing. So these are landscape hotels that are just immersed in nature with a big view, and it's a super hot trend. These are our units. This is what we came up with after we realized if we had individual units, we would destroy more open space, and if we consolidated them into 3, we could preserve more open space. And that's how we got on the 3 together instead of singular. And it's just like a hotel room with glass, with a bed, with a little kitchenette and a bathroom. Go through these, and that's a little bit bigger one with a smaller one. Same concept though, still that will rust, so it'll come out as raw still, but then the weather will rust it, and then it'll turn orange. It'll look cool and blend in with the surrounding landscape, and it'll last forever. It's a zero maintenance product. So this was us trying to figure out the fire. Once we learned, okay, we have to be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant. And then we were trying to come up with different ideas, but we didn't realize we had to have emergency vehicles to access immediately yet. And this was just our whole process of trying to figure this out. These are different layouts, and it's like, okay, so if we consolidate them more, we can keep more open space up here. All with the objective of having a platform for a conversation saying, hey, we know that the perfect thing would be for humans not to touch the planet, but that's not rational or realistic. This is private property, and it will get developed. So this is a better option for this property than business as usual, scrape it, put houses on it. So as we got into this, then we hired SE Group. We flew these guys out from Maryland. They're landscape architects. They do a lot of really great stuff, big projects, bike trails, all kinds of stuff like that. Brought them out, and then we really got this thing nailed down where, okay, if we have a road come up through it, we can do all our utilities, we can have our buildings off to the sides, we can meet our right grade, we can have fire access, and this is where we landed here. And with this plan, we could keep the most open space possible while still having the units and having a way to pay for the land. Phases, open space, and that's it, that's what I've got. So that's where Rob and I came from. This was our purpose and our intent. We specifically sought out this property for a platform for us to have this conversation about these things that we're concerned about. And we've worked really hard. We think we've come up with a really awesome plan. And it's a plan, so Rob and I personally don't have very much money, but through this project, we're able to raise enough money to pay for the property and the project. And that's where we got, and we think it's a really awesome idea. So that's what we've got for our presentation.
Okay.
Thanks.
Do you have a website where we can look at all of that?
We don't yet. This is all just our drawings we've been creating for the city to try to get everything figured out and nailed down. But at some point, when we get to that point, we'll have all kinds of things.
Those drawings are in the proposed development agreement also.
And where can we look at that? On the website, it's on the, oh, it is
Right.
packet.
I need a copy.
Now you're coming back to the planning commission with this also.
What's that?
You're coming back to the planning commission with this also.
So we've got our planning and zoning done. Right now, we're working, this is our development agreement. And so that's the contract with the city saying, yes, move forward with this and create your construction drawings and all the things that are required to actually build it. And then we'd apply for a building permit and all that kind of stuff. So where we're at right now is just nailing down that development agreement.
Okay, so this is a lot different than what you've got before us.
So that's the thing, we've been working, over the last year really hard on this.
I
And
know
so
you
the
have.
initial idea was something vastly different, and really it's all the exploration we've done, working with professionals in the field that really helped us narrow down to what we think is a really viable solution for the space.
There's a lot of organic farmers out
Mayor,
I didn't know that.
it's hard
Shovel and
for us to
wheelbarrows
record this
and
without
worms
having
and-
people state their names and keep calling them. or-
That's
I
not.
didn't, that's interesting.
So, I think what we'll do is, so the last item on the agenda is public comments, and I think we'll just move that to right now. Open up for public comments, because we're fresh on this, and I need you to keep the chatter down, state your name and address for the record, so we have this as part of the minutes as well. Bruce?
Were you motioning to open public comments then?
Yeah. We have to do a motion to change it. I make a motion that we change, move public comments to right after this presentation, item number, between 2 and 3.
I second the motion.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye. And I make a motion that we open public comments at this time.
Second the motion. Vote?
Aye. Public comments. Bruce? do you want-
So, you always want to state your name and address if they call on you. Leah Albert.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if these are going to be vacation rentals or will they be residential?
Hotel nightly stays.
So
Yes.
there will be no permanent homes?
Correct.
Okay. And how many built out?
What have we got approval for, 120?
120, I think.
So, yeah,
Not more than 120.
I think we're gonna start out
120.
with 20 as our initial phase.
And you're getting the water from Apple Valley?
We're building a 150,000 gallon water tank for the community that will be by the other water tanks that we'll tie into for firefighting.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Other comments? Tony?
Yes, I'm Tony Vitale. I live at 884 West Foothill Drive. I've lived there 17 years, and I bought my property in 1997 when that property we're talking about right now was BLM. It's not BLM anymore, and I understand, but what I am concerned about is the safety of the buildings and the people on the lower side of Foothill Drive, the circle. And I'm going to talk, some other people I'm going to talk about the visitors, and I'm going to talk about the construction. A lot of people might remember here a few years ago when you put in the water line and had the chip and seal, and you had a vibrating compactor come along, and you could feel that shaking about half a block away. And that's down here on the bottom lands, on the sand and the gravel. All the building they're doing up there is going to be on that rock panel that's hanging over our house. And it's a very unstable panel. All you have to do is go look at that hillside. It is very unstable. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm a heavy equipment operator, retired from Las Vegas, and I spent 30 years digging ditches and around ditches. And you don't dig a ditch through rock with a backhoe. Now they're going to dig ditches for the water line all the way up there to the units. They're going to dig ditches for their sewage line away from all the units. They got to dig ditches for the electric lines to all the units. And they've got to dig ditches for gas line. They're going to have gas. I don't know if they'll have one big gas tank or several gas tanks. So I know this is going to happen, but that there's a very unstable hillside. And I just like the town, when you're gonna have to okay this unit, there's no doubt about it. But make sure that they don't do any blasting, that they don't do any headache balls like the old way we used to dig ditches, and they don't use any hoe rams, because that'll just shake that hillside. So I'm just asking if everybody agrees. I'm sure nobody in here wants to see a rock that roll down that hill and go through a house and kill somebody. So I'm just asking that we all look at that. If anybody wants to see what I'm talking about, I'll take you up there either Friday or Saturday. And that's all I've got to say, but I'm sure somebody else has got.
Thanks, Tony. Janet?
Janet Prentice, 1567 North Mount Zion Drive. We went through this on the Planning Commission several years ago. It looks like you've moved a lot of the places away from the wall. And I appreciate that, because that's one thing we asked you to do. And you have less units. And I like the fact that you're being more environmentally thinking, because we really need to do that. And I did a big hike up there in November, and looked at where you're gonna put this stuff. And I can see where you can dig through sand and not have to go through rock for a lot of these places.
Yeah. So geotechnical engineer is who's the expert on this. We'll bring them out and have them
No,
look at
it's just,
everything.
we just do a lot of hiking. When we hike, my husband and I hiked up there where you're gonna put that.
Yeah.
And saw that it wasn't all solid rock, and now that you've moved it back from the ledge, I think it's much better.
Yeah.
Although you're still gonna have everybody down in Gooseberry worried about falling rock.
Yeah, so geotechnical engineer would be the one that will come out and assess everything, because
Yeah.
that's their profession. And then they'll
Yeah.
tell us, like, you can dig here, you can't dig here, and all of that. And assess if it's safe or not safe.
Now,
and all
is that, are you gonna bring any of this back to the planning commission, or are we done with it?
So we get the development agreement signed, and then we go to all the engineers and all the professionals, and they create all of the construction drawings. And then all of that is brought back, and then the people that issue the building permits, they review and assess all of that.
Okay.
So this,
Kathy?
so am I answering, or do you want, or?
It's okay. Yeah, we'll just, for public comment, I mean, there might be
Okay.
questions that come
So
through,
we
and
can
I'll
chat
answer
about
them, but for the most part, we'll just listen to what they have to say.
Okay.
Kathy? Isn't it Kathy? I'm sorry, what's your
Nope.
name? You look
Amber
like
Hoover.
Kathy. Amber.
I'm kind of speaking for my mom and dad, Lee and Dan Atwood, 1535 McIntosh Circle. We came from an area where, in Reno, Nevada, where we lived on the edge of town, and all of a sudden track houses were everywhere. We've watched Park City become a mess, Salt Lake down to, I don't know what, Spanish Fork, nothing but houses. From Hurricane to St. George, ugly. It used to be cute little towns. So it's gonna happen, whether we like it or not. It will happen, 7 billion people. This type of project sounds progressive. Yeah, do we want Marriott up there? Or do we want something like this? And that being said, yes, for someone like you, we would really love to see the environmental impact studies, the water impact, because water is super scarce. Sewer impact, you know, drainage, septic tank, sewer system. Where are you gonna get your water? What are you gonna do with water? Water treatment. What's gonna happen on the highway in terms of more people coming this way? So I think you kind of answered that you submit everything to the city again for approval. I'm not sure.
Thanks for your comments. Let me just address the sewer too, just so you know, this type of a project has to go to the state for sewer approval. It's not out here to the Southwest Health, you know, like a home septic system would go. They have to go to the state and pass a much stringent guidelines for a commercial project, and so that would have to get signed off. It takes some months to do it, and it's whatever they come back with out of there is going to be you know, well engineered. it's not just a simple septic tank like you have at your house.
The slides I started going faster, those were my interactions, the emails with all these state people. And that, when I touched base on the putting it on your driveway, that was just an example of them explaining that, yeah, these alternative septics. So it's a commercial alternative septic system, and it means it's bigger, it means it's pressurized, but it's still the same type of system. And the small places you were talking about would end up, I'm sure, certain, on a commercial septic system. So all those small houses would go to one big system, but it's still septic.
Margie.
Margaret Osowski, 102 West Little Canyon. On your original plan, your units were, what, 2 rooms?
Just one.
One room, okay.
Yeah, so that's why there were so many of them.
So now so how many did you have originally? And now that there are 3 rooms, and you're still having 120, right?
Correct.
So, what we've done is we've done 3 packs.
Yes.
So what we've done is instead of like doing 120 separate units, we're basically going to have a standard, and it makes it also easier for us to fabricate these, where we're gonna have a standard scalable structure underneath every type of dwelling. And it'll be about a 20 by 60 footprint with a little bit of a balcony on it. And so we'll divide that up into 20 by 20 units. And so those count as 3 units. Even though it's now one structure, you know, it's a whole lot easier for us to make and actually get up there.
There's not any more
I was gonna ask, is it gonna be more people gonna be up there, or is it the same amount that you originally had? That's what
The same amount. So if you think about it as
Just
a
less
door,
structure.
there's the same amount of doors. There's just 3 doors together because we can save more open space.
And originally we were actually thinking that we would even do bunk beds and have it be much more of like a outdoor kind of like backcountry type of experience where we would do, you know, 4 to 6 people in a small establishment, whereas now we want to be much more of a experience, like almost like a resort or a retreat.
Well, if you guys are so environmentally, you know, all the people coming there are gonna be driving, so they're gonna be using all that petrol that you were just talking about, you know, so.
You're right.
So you
think
can't,
about
so
all the
you're.
people driving themselves separately to bike everywhere. So the whole point here is people are coming, and how can you be proactive to have a better situation for all these people? So if they drive to one location and then they're getting shuttled everywhere, we're eliminating everybody coming and just driving all over the place.
And they're all gonna have all those plastic bottles that they dump up there that we pick up.
We won't. Oh, that was another point. So we'll have like
No plastic.
No plastic.
Yeah.
We'll
Oh,
have
yeah.
like stainless steel,
No, seriously.
like a Nalgene bottle, but out of metal. But we don't have a lot of time. But that's the whole point here, is to say it's not rational to say people aren't going to come. We're trying to be proactive and say people are coming, so let's create a situation that does preserve open space, but also puts people up.
I'm just gonna say, if your project isn't done by October when they have the Red Bull, go up there and look what happens after Red Bull. And then go and talk to the national park at Zion and ask them how much trash is left up in the Narrows, and it's not very pretty, and that's not gonna be very pretty.
100%. That's what we're trying to facilitate, is changing that. I go to Red Bull every year. I'm well aware of it. And that's what we're trying.
Thanks for your comments. Richard?
Richard Fisher, 1241 South Desert Drive. Hey, if you guys were worried about this guy trenching, he can go get a company that'll trench right through that rock without blasting, without hammer hoeing.
I know they can, I'm just making sure they can.
They got trenchers that'll go 16, 18 feet deep, and I mean, you can get, it'll go right through that sandstone like it's butter.
When I called around, I thought I needed a rock well when I was first trying to assess if this was even realistic, a big 8-foot diameter rock well on a backhoe. And I couldn't figure out why no one had them for rent anywhere. And I was asking the wrong questions. And then they said, you can get through the sandstone with a carbide trenching bit. It'll cut right through it. It's sandstone.
But just use them, I just wanted to
Yeah,
make sure
just,
you use them.
No, yes.
And that's the
Sharing
hard
with
part.
you what I learned.
And part of,
want that
and also part of
vibration.
consolidating the units is we're gonna do less trenching than our original plan by far.
Yes.
Forrest?
Forrest Keeney, North Rome Avenue. Didn't quite understand where the water tanks are going.
So one of the plans, and we've got our water expert here, Rob Mills, one of the plans is to add to the 2 existing tanks an addition, a 3rd tank, but it'll feed the system for everybody. So instead of putting our own tank on our property that we just use for firefighting, we only need like a 30,000 gallon tank realistically, but firefighting requirements makes that go up to 150,000 gallons. But that, we don't really need it. So if we put it with the other tanks, the whole community can benefit from it.
So you're building both tanks?
We're building at one tank by the two, that's 150,000 gallon. That'll feed the whole system currently.
Richard?
So not a tank on your property?
As far as we know, we've had all the modeling done on the water system, and the line right now that's ran to the bottom is big enough for us to just supplement the existing system, and then we'll tie in at the bottom and have pumps that pump it up to us. But then the community can benefit from it instead of it just being our own private water, you know what I mean?
Richard?
Quick question, why are we keep adding these small tanks to what we have up there? When we were playing around the oil field, they make a tank, well, 2.5 million gallons. You can buy them, they snap together, you put liners on them, you can put a rooftop on them. We can put that tank in for about 150,000 bucks. It'll be 2.5 million gallons. It would have to take care of so much use in this town. It's funny. Why are we messing with all these little 100,000 gallon tanks that we have to keep adding and leaving a big mess up on our hill? What's wrong with this?
Yeah. Good feedback, thanks. Pam?
Pam Coyle, Smithsonian Road. Most of my concern is traffic through our subdivision. Now they're saying that they were going to dedicate some of the open space to the town, and that's right behind my house. And the fire road is coming down right there, and I want to make sure there's no vehicular traffic except for emergencies allowed on that road. And then I wonder about the construction. When they put the water line in, are they going to come through the subdivision?
So right at the very end, and then there's the Boy Scout camp. The water will go straight up from there.
And when you're putting that in, where would the vehicles access it?
From Main Street.
So the people that are going to stay there won't access through your neighborhood?
I understand that.
It's just for the water line.
Well, for the construction,
not the utilities, but the actual construction?
Well, and the utilities.
Obviously the utilities have to go there because that's where the work is, but all the construction will direct around.
And when it's built, and that's just a fire access, how will people be prevented from driving through there?
So there'll be an emergency crash gate.
It's been hell when ATVs have been going out through that green gate before it was built.
Yeah, so there'll be a gate that is some form of a crash gate for the fire to get through, but no one else. The fire won't even access from the bottom because it's been described, is the fire chief in here?
Yeah.
So what I was explained to was it'd be like going into an ambush basically, because you can't see. So it'll always be approached from the top around, and then that would just be an emergency out.
So, you're Rich?
Yeah.
Did I talk to you on the phone then?
Yeah. Yep.
So what I explained to you was everybody on that property is gonna need access to that gate in case of an emergency. So every single person on that property cannot be locked in there.
Yeah.
So.
But there's easy solutions for an emergency crash out, but not access up.
Yeah, so we need access either way. I mean, if we're coming up there, it has to be.
Well, that's a gate.
Yes.
I mean, out of this whole project, that's a pretty
There's
minor.
there's an easy fix for it.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't worry about that much, but the keeping people from going through there, that might be a little bit of an issue for you guys.
It's just like any fire egress, emergency egress. I mean, it could just, I don't know, have an audible alarm or whatever. There's tons of ways to make that work.
We'll work out those details in the engineering part of it. So, Rich?
Yeah, I think we covered this before. Rich Osowski, 1024 West Open Way. They won't be able to pull ATVs up there to park at their place. I have a lot right up against that mountain. I don't want people climbing in the area. I don't need ATVs. And then also the light pollution on fires. That's my view over that mountain that I look at every day, or every night. So I want to make sure we can control all that number of people. And then the last thing is, what are you charging for these spaces that people's living in? Whether it's a 1 bedroom or 2-bedroom or whatever.
So the first question, there won't be any trailers, dirt bikes, ATVs, nothing of that sort. We won't allow it because that's not our brand.
Yeah.
And the light pollution and the night, what is it, the
Night sky.
the night sky, but the silhouette. That's why we've pushed everything so far back. And that was part of our argument on this being better, because residential, they could build houses up to 50 feet away from it and make them as tall as they want. And that would totally,
Maybe
obviously.
you could build a wall.
Well, the wall would be obtrusive as well. So that's why we pulled them back. And then part of the experience we're trying to create is that preservation of the night sky. So our lighting will all be designed to be safe enough to, meet code.
But you got headlights of cars coming up there, and even the headlights, I can see Las Vegas from a lot of miles away, and that just kind of pollutes the area. But you got cars with headlights, so if they could turn them to low beam, or turn them to maybe just the parking lots when they drive up there, because I'll be able to see all those headlights coming up there night after night after night, and they leave at all times during the night. And I got a Jeep, so I can run that Jeep with the headlights and on high beams. You can see me for a long ways. And then with the lights up above the Jeep, I can really flood you out.
So if it went residential, all that traffic and vehicles and headlights would be coming right through and right up onto it. We have a better option, but yeah, you're right.
But it would increase our property values.
It'd
The
be
headlights?
nice.
No, the residential area that was gonna be built up there.
No, don't like that.
That's what I'm just saying, but anyways, I have another question. Margaret Osowski, 1024 West Little Pinion. I don't remember in your original presentation about a bar and outdoor seating, restaurants and stuff like that. And so what is that?
So back to the per night, and then it ties into yours. So we're looking, so all this stuff and the 100,000 we're paying for the traffic turnout and the 150,000 we're paying for the water tank. The only way that we can pay for all that is to raise our nightly rent, and to do that, so $300 to $400 a night, really high end, really nice, right? That's what we're creating. Think of like a yoga retreat type of an experience. That's what we're going for. Now, we paid $10,000 for a report for these professionals to go out and say, is this rational? Is this realistic? Will this work? And then they pull comps like from under canvas, that's getting $300 to $400 a night, all this kind of stuff. And they come back and said, yes, this will work, but there's certain things that people expect that you have to get that type of a nightly revenue.
Yeah.
And food, there's no food out here. So we can't go into this without a legit game plan, and part of that working is those amenities, and that's what's expected. I fought everyone on the whole pool idea the whole time until I realized if we want to do this and we want it to work, there's things that we have to do to get these people to come here.
So then my question would be, why, since you've changed a lot on this plan, why didn't it go back to the planning commission and have another public hearing on it?
So what we brought to you was a vision that we had, and then we were told, and that I've had to blow through all of that, but all that highlighted stuff was saying, through creative solutions, you can have your project fit within this ordinance.
Who told you that?
Well, we skipped through it. If we read through those.
We went through all that.
So.
But what I'm saying is that it's their plan changed, and so why doesn't it go back to the planning commission?
So we were given the job of going out and hiring the professionals to make this real, and that was the whole fire piece, is what we had brought we can't do because of fire. The most restrictive is fire. So the creative solutions applies to a lot of stuff, but not code, life and limb, fire.
Rich, I'm not sure, you can't answer this question. This is a question for the town to answer at the end
Okay.
of the day. The plan has changed slightly, but it's
That's changed a
substantively.
lot.
Well, just said vastly.
But you gotta look at the development agreement and what is being approved through that. It's basically the same concept. It's 120 units. They're spaced a little differently. It's a different type of construction than what they presented. They just presented the pictures though of units, and they're very similar to that. They really haven't deviated from the original unit design much at all. And so the development.
Well, you know, I'm just wondering why, since it did change, I mean, you know, I don't know how that works, but I thought when you have a plan and then you change it, a big, you know, like if you have a development or anything and then you change it, it needs to go back to the planning commission for, you know, to be reapproved.
I don't think we really got it right. Like what we
Well,
brought.
Let me ask you that question, Rich, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I just don't understand. I'm sorry.
Let me answer the question for you. I'm gonna turn it over to our attorney.
The planning commission is a recommending body.
Okay.
And so this project went through the planning commission, they looked at it, they made recommendations. Now, the applicant here has made changes to those plans in response to some of the comments they received from the town during the planning commission meeting and from the town itself. And so taking those together, they can still come to the town council with a recommendation for the planning commission, and the town council could still say, you know what, the planning commission said they all have to be pink, but we think they all have to be blue, or they can't be two-story, and the town council could say, yes, they could be two-story. This is the legislative body, they're the land use authority, and they have the ability to do that. In fact, we just passed legislation this session to make it even clearer in the code that the planning commission's role is just recommending, and it's the town council that makes the decision. So it did go through the proper process, and
I'll take it one step further. When they decide they want to put up their lodge building or the pool or whatever, it has to go back through planning for their approval as well on the building and the structure, and they have to go through a process. We can't just, you know, it's at the time that's decided that we want to do this or that.
Well, we thought it was a real smart plan then.
Forrest, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Could we change our PD ordinance before we do this? Because the PD ordinance says this comes back to the PC. It's very clear. Sorry, Sean, but it's really clear.
I don't agree that, I'd like to talk to you after this. I don't agree with you.
Okay.
Well, the reason why he's saying that is the first project was strictly housing. This project's no longer just a nightly housing or rentals.
As the
This
gentleman out
project
here
has
always named,
now a bar, it has,
We need one person talking at a time.
Sorry.
but there's a bunch of other amenities and things that now, they've created more of a resort. They've almost ought to ask for the ordinance, or the zoning of the ordinance, or the resort.
Now,
We have a resort ordinance.
When you say amenities, I question that, because they took the list that they had proposed out of the agreement. So anything they do, they're gonna have to come back to the town. It says that in the agreement. So if they want to put, I don't know if you said a bar, I didn't know if I heard you right, but if they wanted to put something like that in there, they're gonna have to come in and get that approved. Once it's approved tonight.
Let me interject something if you don't mind. I've got a copy of the agreement in our packet, and the packet is what everybody's probably downloaded and read. And in that packet, they have things like a maximum of a 24-inch cut, things that I said that's got to come out. The word lodge, I would caution you on the word lodge because it sounds like someone's going to be sleeping in the lodge. To them, the lodge means a place you check in. You know, it's a place you might have your little tiny nook grocery store that's the size of a, you know, probably a postage stamp that's where someone can buy their stainless steel bottles so they can have them fill it with water. That kind of, that's what the lodge is. But that word is still in here. I'm wondering if I even have the right agreements in our packet, because there's a few things in here that we've talked about that you guys were okay with pulling out. Yet I'm reading through here seeing, you know, like, I've made a couple of notes. Let me, and you can maybe shine some light on that. Did that get changed or didn't get changed? Because I'm kind of wondering if this stuff. Because that's why I'm thinking that Forrest is worried about this stuff in here. Yet my understanding was all that stuff was pulled out anyway.
It's in my copy, and the gentleman just mentioned aquaponics in the lodge. So they're still got
but that's the lodge is approved though.
You can call it whatever you want. It's a check-in. It's where you go to get your room.
the road base,
With
we talked about.
aquaponics and a fireplace outside, I'm a little.
No campfires are allowed.
No campfires allowed. So aquaponics, it's like, any commercial building you walk in, they have planters. We're just talking about those planters are being fed by fish wastewater. It'll look just like a cool, normal building that you're going into with an opportunity to talk about how that's happening, that's all.
Outdoor wood burning and campfires will not be permitted within the project except as designed and constructed for a lodge approved by the town.
So that specifically was if there was a fireplace inside. when you
Mayor,
walk
I
into
think you
check-in.
do have an old version.
But you definitely have an old version,
Yeah.
because we
Because
took
that's not
all that
in there.
out.
That was removed.
And I looked for the latest email, so my apologies to the group
Yeah.
that I have so many versions of this, it's easy to get.
Yeah, it's gone back and forth.
It's so easy to get the wrong one. I've tried to date these things and I still pulled out the latest one, yet I've got it wrong. I'm sorry. Here, right here.
Amber, speaking for Atwood, 1535 McIntosh Circle. I think this might be a question for you. They revise again. It goes back for planning commission review-ish, and then they can approve or not. But somewhere in that interim, is there another time for public comment again? Or a public hearing? Or, I mean, before approval.
Yeah, we've already had the public hearing on the project and they.
Would there be
Planning
another
Commission-
one?
No, the planning commission forwarded to us for approval. We're up here trying to decide, is this significantly different? And because they're putting in a check-in place, I mean, we pulled out all the commercial stuff that they've mentioned. And they're in a place where they have to come back and ask permission to build anything. If they want to build a restaurant, they gotta come ask permission for that. And so the agreement I gave you guys that's in the, all that stuff was pulled out. And so I think what we need to do is just not vote on the agreement in this particular meeting because I need the right one here in the meeting to vote on my apologies that I got the wrong one in the packet. And so that pushes us to another meeting for the actual agreement part of it. But we've got some homework to do on the water end of it anyway, so.
So are you gonna give us town people discounts for when you have your restaurant?
Well, that's my question, why, I don't understand why you guys don't want somewhere to eat out here.
We do. We
It's
do.
gonna be a nice restaurant,
But
really
that's-
nobody wants somewhere to eat. You do?
We do.
This is gonna be really cool, like, come on.
No, I
Did you know that?
But if we get to that road, like we decide that it is something we can put forward, it will have to be good.
My brother was the chef at Fitness Bird. So, I think all those restaurants.
No, I guys want some voice, of course.
All right. If the chatter calms down, we'll call someone else. Ed?
Yeah, hi. Vingenberg, 1424 Rome Way. So November 5th, you dug up my street to put in my water meter. It's never been repaired. I throw it in dirt a couple of times. It gets bounced out all the time.
Yeah.
So it's over a year now. So I know you kind of said, well, when weather gets better, but it gets a lot of traffic because it's one of the main streets in the area. And you know, they've never, I guess, cold patched it physically, other than throw some dirt and rocks in it. Yeah. So it would be nice that someone actually paid the attention to it.
I really agree with that one.
That's the old one. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Forrest.
Forrest, North Rome Avenue, one question I forgot. When this project was originally zoned, it was around 66 acres. I'm hearing 70 acres now.
So it's 69
69 point something or other.
How did that happen?
It's always been that way,
Well,
sir.
there's all the easements for the utilities. So we own the strip that comes straight down to the street, and then we own property that goes behind all the houses as well. So there's two ways we can bring utilities in, but we want to bring them in right where the Boy Scout camp is, because we'll basically make a road by digging up anyway, so that'll be the emergency road right there. So there's a lot of parcels, and Sean had us combine all those into one parcel. So, and all of those collective are like 69 point something.
Right, so, but the original parcel was zoned and all these that you added on were not zoned. Do we need to worry about that? John.
I believe they're part of the same.
That's all.
You guys let the town answer these questions.
I would need them to identify those 3 acres so I could see where that property
There's
is.
about 3 parcels, I
But-
think they have.
Okay, so we can take a look at that.
I think we should.
Fire chief.
I had one question, and I don't know if it's been changed because I've been looking at the old one, but fire access, I'd like to see that in the agreement. Kind of says follow the fire code instead of, I forget how you worded it in there, but it words it a little differently, so it doesn't really say.
I think it says, emergency access,
Something
and
like
it
that,
should say,
yeah. I'd like it to say fire code.
No
just
big deal
so that,
difference,
you
yeah.
know,
No big deal.
we don't get on any bad.
That was
terms.
that one of your comments, chief, on your?
I think it might have been, so it might have been changed, I just haven't.
It probably is.
Yeah.
We did incorporate those
We did,
comments in there, so we'll just make
Well,
sure,
let's do
we'll make
this.
sure
Let's
you
get
guys
it.
have the most recent
Let's get
version.
the most recent back in here. My apologies,
Yeah.
I thought I had pulled the right one. I looked at the latest email chain that I had, and
I have one more question. On your map, so there's a lower cul-de-sac down there, and I know I've looked at it with Ben on the maps and everything like that, and I'm not 100% sure if that's your property or someone else's property, but where your emergency comes up and it splits off kind of, and there's a cul-de-sac over to the right or a roundabout, how hard would it be for you guys to get, I think it's only 50 feet or something like that, a road from that cul-de-sac out to our main access again? Because that
Across
would-
that other, that's not our property.
is it not your property then? Because we looked at it and I couldn't really say
If
it
I
was or
understand
it
what you're
wasn't.
saying, that goes across the LDS church property right there.
Oh, it
Or
does, so they
BLM.
actually come up into yours a little bit on that
Yeah,
side?
so it's got that,
Okay.
kind of that butte shape.
Yeah.
And you're saying out that way?
Yeah, so there's.
It's BLM and then LDS church property.
Oh,
Till you
okay,
get
so
to
it might
that
be
road.
BLM then, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our property, we can come up.
That would just solve a lot of problems I see you guys running into with the secondary access and stuff like that, and I didn't know if that was feasible for you guys, I just
You know,
wanted to bring that up.
Rod, do you
So-
have any info?
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is accurate. That is, the property is not owned by this particular developer.
That would allow you guys to be more vigilant on that gate down by Gooseberry, that's all. That's the only reason I brought that up, is because
Yeah.
it would allow another secondary exit and egress for the people up there on the property.
Is that even
So-
realistic to look into, to asking?
Yeah.
So we can
I don't
ask.
know,
Yeah.
I thought it might help with the people down in Gooseberry that there's, you know,
Well, part of this too, though, is we've been pushed hard to stay away from traffic through the neighborhood. And wouldn't that,
that's away from the neighborhood, that's actually going out
It's
to
up
Main
on-
Street
It
again.
goes back up to Main Street.
I understand that, but so they come in on Main Street, do a 90, come down the hill and into the cul-de-sac, but you still now got a connection there pushing traffic through the neighborhood potentially.
No, that's not the neighborhood, that's their development, or your
Yeah, he's saying
development.
pushing
So,
out, back up.
Yes.
We're talking like, if it's the butte shape, right here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only like 50, I think it's about 50 feet, or it might be a little more.
It's
Like
not,
on
it's not.
north of the Boy Scout.
No, it's not.
Stuff, right?
From your roundabout, it kind of wise off right at the Boy Scout.
Yeah.
And then you got a roundabout here, it's only a little distance.
We could inquire, it's not something we ever considered.
Yeah, you can't, I just figured it might be.
We'll inquire about that.
It is going through, that
think that's
particular
BLM.
discussion, it's
Yeah.
not, it's LDS Church.
Is it?
Yeah, and
have everybody here.
they've been reasonable, but I don't think that that's a possibility. Yeah.
I just wanted to.
We can,
Okay, we can talk about this all night, folks, but I make a motion that we table the agreement until we get an updated one that we can review.
Mayor, before you get a second.
Yeah,
We went to public comment, right?
right, we've got a close public comment before we do that, and so April, you've got another question?
This is unrelated to that. Just, can we still make comments on your survey that's on the website? You know, about for Main Street?
It's
Can we
public
still-
comment, you can do anything you want, but we
Okay.
will have a special meeting just for that as
Right.
well.
And then, in regards to affordable housing, moderate income housing that you have to use, in Jackson, Wyoming, they've done some pretty nice things for affordable housing. Wilson, Wyoming, Jackson, I don't know if you care about that, knowing that, or looking at their model. they've
Yeah.
done it pretty well, I
Oh,
think.
appreciate you letting me know that.
Yeah.
Rich Sauce, or Rich.
Yeah, Rich Cap, 1193 East Big Vineyard. Yeah, going back to the first part of your presentation, I can remember back in the day, it was all glass and paper.
Yes.
And it seems like the tree huggers won out, and then it wound up all plastics. So, you know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And now we're trying to get back to paper. So we've come full circle.
Some things are sustainable, some things aren't. You can recycle glass and aluminum infinitely. You can't really recycle plastic effectively.
I know, but Daddy government pushed the paper away
Well,
because they said the trees were leaving,
That's
so
a
they
little-
went to plastic.
That's a little
It's
beyond
about
our
money,
scope
they make
tonight.
more
All right, last chance for public comment. We're gonna close public comment.
Thank
Forrest?
you for the presentation about the plastic,
you're
by the
welcome.
way.
Forrest, North
Everybody-
We're just speaking our truth. We're just trying our best to try to make a positive impact.
If we don't go back to PC with this, could we at least consider doing a public hearing? This, I mean, this in a way was a public hearing, but wasn't really advertised as such for a long enough time, so I would think if you're going to redo it, it might be considerable.
When you look at the developer agreement, it's pretty much the same as what we've already approved.
Yes.
So, I mean, everybody can flood me with emails and phone calls and, you know, with undue pressure, you know, anything can happen, so.
I've got all
Richard?
the plans.
Can we not have Michelle print one of those new agreements off, look at it real quick and get these guys approved and move on?
We can send an email right now, right?
Well, we want to keep tabling and move on.
It's not part of our agenda, it's not in our packet, it's not, the public doesn't have it, people don't have time to read it. I don't think that would be advantageous for us, as we try and get these things out. I actually emailed this to the town council over a week ago, so they have time to decipher this stuff and look at it prior to even the agenda being posted. So it's really gotta be part of our agenda posting. But we can look at the next town council in 2 more weeks, and we'll get that thing out, and we'll even post that ahead of time from normal, so anybody that wants it, probably as soon as tomorrow, I'd be able to contact Michelle, we'll be able to email a copy of that, so everybody's got plenty of time to review it. So, but we can't do it in this meeting because of the, we have to have it in the agenda, okay? So I make a motion that we close public comment.
Second.
And vote?
Aye.
Aye. So public comment's closed. I'd like to make a motion that we table items 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 for the next meeting. Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
What's the minor pipeline?
So we'll put those off. I'll just answer that question real quick. It's just someone who has some flooding in their backyard that's being caused by a pipeline that the town put in, and it's our responsibility to fix it. And the reason I'm tabling most of these items is because I'm decided that we want to try to get some CIP money, grant money to help pay for some of these things. I've been trying to connect for a couple of days to get some resolution on that. It didn't happen the last couple of days, so I think by Friday I'll be able to have a little more information on that. So next meeting we might look at these again and decide to do something with them or put them off for a future grant. So anyway, item number 9 is consent calendar for February. Any questions on that? I make a motion that we accept the consent calendar as presented by Ben. And vote?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries. And events committee, Tish, do you have any comments?
April 20th, we're having an Easter egg hunt for all the kids and offering hot dogs and chips and a drink for $1.50 kind of as a fundraiser. We'll also, on all of our events, be soliciting donations for Louis Ford, our fire chief, and he's battling leukemia and has medication expenses and things like that. And he's done so much for our town that we are asking people to, you know, kick in a little bit here and there. And so we can help out a really good man.
How does that happen? How are we gonna donate? I didn't get that.
How what?
How are we gonna donate?
We'll have,
Who
at all the events committees, we'll have jars
Oh, okay.
for that. And then as well, we're going to put out a flyer in with the water bill and the electric or drainage bill this month to let people know that they could do it on, then we figured out how to do it then on the PayPal or
We'll
whatever
figure out a
express
way.
bill.
Mortgage, we'll figure out a way.
Anyway, yeah, so that you could just put it on your credit card or debit card, and then that money would go to Louis.
Got it.
And we'll track it.
That's what I wasn't catching.
Anyway, so that's what's coming up. We're trying, we don't know if we're gonna get the train done by Easter, but we are coming up with a barrel train for the kids. And we'll tow it around on a four-wheeler or something.
That's a little jab in the mayor's.
Yeah, yeah, my barrel making committee is
Yes,
still thinking about it. We have the plans and the materials, we're just working on the manpower.
The time, yeah.
So get all your kids, grandkids, whatever, come over for Easter egg hunt, it'll be a blast. I understand the Easter bunny might show up, so anyway, that's what we're doing.
Yes, it sounds fun. Anyway, Planning Commission, I'll just mention that our next Planning Commission, we did have kind of slated on the calendar for Jefferson Canyon project, which is across the highway from the station. I've got to talk to Cynthia about that, and we may move that back one more meeting and try to do a public hearing and zone change and the master plan all in one meeting, and that'll just be all that we do in that planning commission meeting. I've got to get permission from her though, it's her meeting, but that's going to be coming, if not the next meeting, for at least a presentation, and the meeting after that, the public hearing. We'll see how that goes, but just be looking for that on the calendar if you want to learn about Jefferson Canyon, what they've got planned across the highway from the station. Fire Chief.
Okay, burn season, it's possibly gonna end May 30th, it's open now. We're still getting tons of people who just burn whenever the heck they want, so. I also have, I finalized the date on the chili cook-off. I don't know if everybody's seen the flyers, but we're gonna do it on April 27th. So that's when we're gonna hold the chili cook-off. We got I don't know if people have been noticing, but we got a weather advisory out right now for the rain that's coming until, I think it's Friday morning. So just be aware that there's going to be a lot of standing water probably in the next 2 days around areas, and we do get it on the highway at mile marker 9 and a couple other areas. So just watch out for that. There's a fire assistance, we got a Utah grant coming out, it just popped up today, so I'll be going after that for I'm gonna try and get a wood chipper for our community and some mitigation efforts we're gonna be doing. So hopefully I can get a wood chipper that we can pull behind the truck, and we'll get it to people's properties who need it, and get you guys some wood chips. Whether you want them or not, they're gonna stay there. So. Also, let's see, I've been working with Hurricane on some training. They've actually been involving us in a lot of their trainings and everything lately, and possibly we'll be working some EMT training that we won't have to pay for. In the past, we've been having to pay in between $1,200 and $2,000 for EMT training, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be able to get that for us at a very, very low cost, if any. So that's something I've been working on for a little while. Let's see, CPR cards, I know a few people didn't get theirs. Check your spam. They popped up in the spam. I've contacted Hilldale again, and they've sent a couple new ones out to certain people that have let me know they haven't got theirs. So check your email if you went through the CPR class. Let's see, we got So I met with the new CWPP advisor. That's our community wildfire preparedness plan. They're redoing everything. The last guy went through everything, didn't really finish up everything. That's why we haven't heard much on the preparedness plan. They're redoing it and revamping it, and I will be asking for certain individuals to possibly be on a fire council for mitigation. I'll get the details on that, but I will be asking for possibly a few volunteers to head up the fire council for mitigation. So they'll be coordinating mitigation efforts in the community and helping out with CERT also. So that's pretty much everything. I don't have anything else. Anybody have any questions about anything or concerns? Margaret.
Are we supposed to be filling out those forms for when we read and stuff?
So the mitigation forms, yeah, I really, after I met with her, I waited until I met with her to actually figure out that there is an actual form that they want us to fill out. So it's on the Division of Wildlife. I think it's, I'll get that out soon so that everybody can see it and get used to it. It actually submits it to them instead of us directly. So, and that's about it. We good?
Okay, thank you. For some reason we have Rob Mills on here, and that's an old habit. Big Plains, Harold Merritt, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just one thing, happy to work with the Gooseberry people. I've been looking for a tank location and think we're good to go on that whenever you guys are up and running, so glad to see you in town. And I don't know of anything else going on that's of any particular importance. Water samples went to town yesterday for a state evaluation, and we do that on a regular basis, so that's ongoing. But I don't know anything that's out of whack.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, I forgot something. I wanted to thank Richard. He's the one who did all the work on the crossing over there on Apple Valley Drive, so I know it took a lot of effort and everything, and he did some good work on getting that road cleared up so we have access. So,
thank you. All right, I think that about covers it. So, I make a motion that we adjourn.
My second one.
Vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.